Rucha Mahabal. I've been working at Frappe for the past 5 years, out of which I think I worked on Frappe HR for 3 years. So today I'm going to share all the things I have known, like working with customers on how to implement and walk you through all the flows in Frappe HR. Also, this is my first functional training this long, so I'll try to keep it as engaging as possible. Before we start, can we have a quick round of introductions? Everyone can introduce themselves and talk about, have you used Frappe HR before? What are your expectations from the training? Yeah, we can start from anywhere. That side. Can you give us a quick introduction about yourself and also what do you expect from the training, and have you used Frappe HR before? Yeah, like we'll do a round with everyone. So we are just having a round of introductions like yesterday where you share how your experience has been. Have you used Frappe HR before, and what are you looking to learn in this session? If you can, or we could start from someone else maybe. Does someone want to go? Okay. Yeah.
I've come all the way from Zambia, so this is the first time I'm going to be using Frappe. So I'm here basically just to know how to do proper configuration and setup, especially for the HR and payroll. So that's what I'm looking to learn today.
Okay, great. Anyone else would like to, anything special you want me to cover in the training, or something you struggle with in implementations or don't understand? Yeah.
Okay, my name is Rucha Mahabal. I'm from Ethiopia, and we've been using Frappe HR, and it has so many features. It is very detailed. So today I came here to get more about on payroll.
Okay.
Frappe HR is very powerful. It's very helpful to handle many things in the HR area. Big management, it has got big management. From recruitment up to, it generally handles employee life cycles. That's what many features.
Yeah, we'll cover as much as we can today. We have a limited time. Anyone else wants to go, or we can start with the session? So since I said there are a lot of modules, so these are the modules. There is recruitment, employee lifecycle, shifts and attendance, leave management, claims, performance, payroll, and lastly a mobile app. So what I'll be doing is I'll be going module by module. I'll be sharing the flow with you, explaining how to configure, what settings take effect on all your workflows, everything. And then maybe we can have a Q&A after every module so that we can keep the session interactive. So while explaining, you can take a note of anything you want to ask me. Once we end one module session, we can take up Q&A. Okay, let's start. So like I said, there are a lot of modules in HR, but what do you usually start with while implementing HR is the masters. So Frappe HR is also dependent on ERP Next for accounting. So all the common masters like department designation, company, accounting, everything sits in ERP Next, and Frappe HR integrates with ERP Next for booking our ledgers, etc. So we have the employee master. So when you start implementing, you would start with importing all your employees, right? So you have like image view, all the overview of company details, name, user details. So you can link a user, you can import users and link users to your employee master so that your employees get access to the portal as well for applying for leaves, expense claims, all of that. You can capture joining details, address and contact, attendance and leaves. So all your defaults sit here. So when an employee joins a company, maybe an expense approver or a leave approver is assigned to them. So even the reporting manager, right? So you can configure all of that here. We have the reports to field to set up the hierarchy within the organization. There is some salary defaults like the mode of salary, the currency, some other details. And this is the connections tab. So you see all the linked documents to that employee from here. So if you want to navigate to some document created for the employee, you can do it from here. If you want to visualize the hierarchy better, there is also organizational chart where you see all the connections of the employees. So this is based on the reports to field, reporting manager, and you can also export this to PNG. So some companies need the hierarchical structure to be more visual. So this was about it. There are certain other modules which masters like department designation, all of that comes pre-configured when you install Frappe HR. So some basic departments which are usually there in companies like marketing, sales, operations, then some usual designations, they come as fixtures with Frappe HR. There are different other reports, masters as well, like employee group, grade, etc. So this is about the setup. Once you set up employee and company, like import all your employees, you can begin module-wise flows. So let's start with recruitment. So I'll be having flowcharts for all the flows. Basically, for recruitment, there are a certain doc types. So initially, you start with planning on how you want to hire. So you have job requisitions where your department people can put in requisitions to hire certain people based on their requirements. Based on that, you can create staffing plans, which is planning for the entire year. Even employee referrals serve as a cue to creating job applicants. From all these sources, you have like job opening created, which is published on the portal. We'll see all this visually in some time. And after the job applicant applies from the portal, there is the interview cycle. So you capture interview feedback, the status, everything, and then you send out offers, and once the offer is accepted, you send out appointment letters. So recruitment is a pretty standard flow. So this is what the job requisition looks like. You can put in a job requisition with the designation or department you want to hire in, the number of positions, expected compensation for each one, who has requested it, and some timelines based on the ETA, like when you want the hiring to get completed. And there are some indicators here, the status, like if your requisition is rejected for some reason or it's on hold. So this is a queue for requisitions. There is employee referrals as well. So you also have staffing plan, wherein while planning for the year, you can get data from your job requisitions as well. So you can plan the number of designations and vacancies for each one, the number of positions you want to hire against each designation, and your staffing plan will validate your job openings whenever you create them. So this is what a job opening list looks like. if I open something and see it on the website, this is the job portal. So you can see all the listed jobs over here. Whatever job openings you published from the portal will show up over here. So there are filters based on company, department, employment type, location, etc. And then different indicators that you can set. So you can keep the job openings internal as well if you don't want to publish it on the website. You want to publish the number of applications received to showcase how in demand the position is for. Also, job application. So Frappe HR ships with a standard web form for job application. So this is the standard web form that comes with the system, but based on your recruitment process, you might want to capture different things when people apply for jobs, right? So you can have custom web forms created and set the web form route over here. So whenever people click on apply now, they'll be redirected to your custom web form. Then the description, salary expectations, etc. So your job portal allows your applicants to apply, and all that data gets captured in the job applicant list. So this is what the job applicant list looks like. Against each applicant, you have some interview summary if they have gone through the interview. There is a source from where did they come, like through employee referrals, through the job portal, website, etc. Resume if they have submitted with their application, salary expectation. So we can start with the interview capturing process. So there are certain interview rounds that you can configure. For example, this is an interview round for technical interview, wherein you put in some expected average rating that's required to clear the interview, and you would have a certain set of interviewers who will take this round in your organization. And what is the expected skill set? So what are the skills you are looking for? So this is important because when you capture feedback, every interview feedback that's captured will be captured against these matrix for you to decide. So I can schedule the interview on some date, and there are actions to reschedule, etc. So there is feedback too. So all the interviewers listed in the interview list will have access to send out, like capture feedback. So once you have captured the feedback, you get the overall average rating based on different feedback from different interviewers. You get the feedback summary. So the skills that we listed in the master for interview round, you get the average rating against each skill. So UI, UX, backend, code quality for everyone. And then there is a timeline of all the feedback that the applicant has received. So by every interviewer that interviewed them. So you can view the entire interview process at a glance, and then you can take the decision on whether to clear or reject the applicant. And once the applicant, like the interview is accepted, like cleared, it gives you a pop-up to update your job applicant as well to accept it. So that keeps your data in sync. So once you've done the interview, right, you might want to send out job offers. So for example, this is a job offer. There are certain masters for this as well. Like job offer might have some templates. So you might have some terms like which department will you work in, how many leaves you will get per year, notice period, probation, etc. So you can set the templates in the beginning and reuse them to autofill the table. So I can, once I select any template, I'll get the relevant terms. And then there is also a terms and condition template. So you might have some terms and conditions that the employee has to sign upon when they join your company, right? Even while sending out offers. So you can create the terms and conditions over here, like based on your work culture, leave policies, all of that. So once you do that, there are print formats. So there is a standard print format that ships with the framework, but you can also customize it based on using the print format builder based on your needs. So you can have all the policies listed here, the terms, signature of the HR letterhead. So you can go ahead and customize. This is a Jinja print format, but you can also use drag and drop with the standard print format to include what's required. Okay. So once your offer is accepted, you can create an employee against the offer, like the applicant, because now they'll be joining you, and you can also send out appointment letters. So appointment letter is also a similar flow. There is a template for this too, terms, and yeah, so here you have the terms and some notes that you want to send with the appointment letter, just like job offer templates. So once you have gone through the entire cycle, you get an employee in the system. There are certain dashboards that come with it, like this is a standard dashboard on how much is your offer acceptance rate, like the offers you send out, how many of them get accepted by the employees, applicant to hire percentage, time to fill job requisitions, your job applicant pipeline based on the designations that are applying, the sources, country status, rejection and clear status of your interviews, all this. So you get a basic dashboard with every module. You can also go ahead and customize it if you need. And okay. So I think we have covered most of recruitment. Employee referral is also pretty straightforward. There is a document wherein you can add the employee referring details, like the details about the person you are referring. And there is also a process to, so you have something called as referral bonus, right? So when people refer someone to your company, you might want to give out referral bonus. So you can mark the referral as applicable for referral bonus, and you get a button here to create additional salary against it. So in the next payroll cycle for the employee, for the referrer, the additional salary will show up in your salary slip. So that will help you pay out bonuses, referral bonuses, when someone refers someone to your company and you end up accepting that applicant, right? So this was about recruitment overview. If you have any doubts so far, you can ask anything. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't get you. Oh. Is the audio okay? paste it somewhere. Telegram. Okay, any questions related to what we discussed, like setup and recruitment till now, or we can move to the next module? Nothing? Yeah.
The system support different level of interviews. What about the online exam? Okay?
Yeah, that's not a part of HR right now. So there is also Frappe LMS available where you have all the testing, examination scenarios covered. So you can prepare, so that can serve as a testing material for your applicants as well. And another use case.
Sorry, I need to make an announcement. Can I make it now?
Yeah. I'll just complete this question. I'll
Okay,
complete this
yes.
question. Yeah. Another thing it can serve is internal training for employees. So if you have some modules that you want to train employees on, you can use Frappe LMS with this. Like install it on the same site and create an internal knowledge base of courses, training material for your employees that they need to go through as part of onboarding process. So both like testing for the employees as well as testing for the applicants as well as training can be handled through LMS. It's not part of HR, like the portal to give tests and all.
That's for existing employees. For the new employees, the companies want to evaluate them. Maybe they give them technical exam.
Correct. So that you can map on Frappe LMS installed on. Sorry.
In addition to the interview.
Yeah, I got your question. But the UI for like giving the exam is not a part of HR. So HR is more of a backend admin with some ESS user functionalities like claims and leaves, etc. For these type of setups, you can install Frappe LMS on the same site.
The other one, have you tried the print designer? It has got some kind of problem, When you design, it's correctly designed, when it's late or when it's reviewed, it's not showing the right information.
So are you talking about the print designer app or the print format builder?
Yeah, I mean print designer, the new print designer. Try the new print designer.
Okay. So we have an engineer maintaining the app. You can raise an issue on the GitHub account, like GitHub repository, and they can look into it with all the problems that you are facing with rendering. Yeah, anything else? There is a quick announcement, I guess.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for that amazing training. As we continue with our training, we wanted to announce that the partners in has been started. So for those who are involved, you can go to the partners meeting. And also make sure you register the link of the link on the registration form outside there. Thank you so much.
Okay. Can we move on to the next module? Anything you want to ask or? Okay. So after recruitment, the employee joins your company. So you have to manage the end-to-end life cycle for the employee. Like there is onboarding, grievance, training, exit, right till exit. There is separation that happens. So They might have some pending accounting that needs to be settled, etc. So the employee onboarding module helps you with that. So there is no one single flow because employee lifecycle is a huge module. So you can create employee onboarding templates. So based on every department or designation, you might have a certain set of tasks that you need to do when you onboard an employee, right? Like for HR, it might be email creation and getting their documents, all of that. For employees, it may be submitting their personal details, going through some filling up of forms, etc. So you can add all the activities here and assign it to the user. So who is responsible for taking care of it and when should it happen. So you can set the duration. So on the first day, all these tasks should happen and for how long will this go. So in case of training, maybe you give a month to the employee to complete the training, right? So the duration in that case can be 30 days. So you can create all these employee onboarding templates based on your designation or department and then use the templates in employee onboarding. So for example, this is an onboarding for the accountant role. So they have certain set of tasks and when you create an onboarding, it creates projects as well as tasks. So all these tasks you see get auto assigned to the user that you set in the template. So this is your HR manager and this is your employee who is getting onboarded. So you get the status over here against each task, whether it's completed, overdue, based on the duration that you set in the template. So that will help you keep a track of how your onboarding is going. And you can also have a Kanban board on what all onboarding is pending, in process or completed. If you are having a number of people joining in a month, you can keep track of it using the Kanban. So this was employee onboarding. There are other things like promotion, transfer, exit, training, etc. So whenever you are creating a promotion for someone, you can set the date of the promotion and with the promotion certain employee attributes might change, like their designation might change with the promotion. So you can select the field from the employee master that you want to change. So let's say from engineer you get promoted to a lead. And you can add it to the promotion details if your department is also changing with the promotion, so on and so forth. So, and the salary details. So once you do that, what happens on submit is there is in the employee master, there is a table for internal work history. So whenever you create any promotion or transfer, it will keep filling up this internal work history with all the details, like on this date your designation changed from this to this, department, branch, all of that. So for promotions as well, you can create print formats to send out the promotion letters however you want. So in this case, this is a customized print format with the designation and CTC, current and new, and letterhead, etc. So transfer is same. You have to enter what all attributes have changed from if you're moving from one department to other, or intercompany. If you have sub companies within one company, then moving from one company to another and creating documents against it. All of that. There is employee separation template similar to onboarding, which helps you keep track of all the things that you need to take care of when someone is exiting the company, like collecting laptops from them, taking the exit interview feedback, handover from certain employees that you need to take over. So separation and separation template is what lets you do that. Then there is full and final statement. So for an employee who is relieving, like who is exiting the organization, you might have certain payables and receivables that you need to settle, and even assets. So in case of assets, you might allocate some laptops, mobiles to the employees, and you or some uniform in some cases. So you might want to get the assets back from them, or even in some cases like uniforms, companies let the employees take the uniforms with them, but they settle the cost for it, so they have to pay for the assets allocated to them, but they can own it. So in that case there is action over here against each asset. So do you want to return it or recover the cost? And based on that, your total asset recovery cost gets calculated and your payable receivable amount is mapped. So in payables, let's say some companies withhold salaries for the last 3 months after they have like submitted the resignation. So in full and final statement, you will have salary slips, pending expense claims, loan settlement in case of like receivables. You have given the employee some loan and you want to settle it before they leave. Advances that you have paid them, all of that. So FNF helps you do that. And so once you submit a full and final statement, a journal entry also gets created against it. So this hits your ledgers or accounting in ERP next, with all the payables, receivables, debit and credit, etc. So apart from that, there are certain basic reports like exits and birthdays, etc. So the employee exit report gives you an overview of how many exit interviews are pending in between 2 given dates. FNF is pending for whom, so you can take care of that if there are a lot of resignations to be processed in some month. So after FNF, we also have exit interview, wherein you can capture some questionnaire and feedback for the company. There might be some interviewers, just like the joining interview, there could be an exit interview where you document the summary of all the things that have happened. So yeah, so this is employee life cycle. These two were small modules. We'll move to more complex stuff after this, like leaves, attendance, shifts, payroll. That's the meat of everything. I'll just check if I'm missing something here. Yeah, so like promotions and transfers, you can create print formats. There are also employee reminders that you can set up in HR settings. So you can send out reminders for like work anniversaries, birthdays, even holidays, like upcoming holidays in the current month, for your employees to plan their work better if they want to take some leaves along those days, etc. So you can set up employee reminders, capture grievances, FNFs and exits. So yeah, I think we have covered everything in life cycle as well. Any doubts so far, or we can move to the leave module? Yeah.
How do you onboard the existing employees, assuming this has been implemented after?
Existing as in you migrated from some system, or?
Assuming the company has just been set up and already some recruitment employees are already on
So you want to capture backdated data into the system, is it? So there is a tool for any such thing. There is a tool called data import, which lets you import any doc type in bulk. So if you have that data from your old system or in Excel sheets or anywhere, you can select the document type over here, the doc type you want to. So in this case, you might have template or onboarding data. So you select employee onboarding, and the import type can be inserting new records or updating the existing ones. So what you have to do is you have to upload the CSV or Excel file with all your data, and you can map the columns over here if your column names are different from what the system provides, and then you get the failure and success logs over here for all the records that have been successfully imported or failed due to some reason. So whenever you have to process things in bulk or need to add, like data migration can happen through data import tool for any doc type in case of onboarding as well. Anything else? Yeah. Yeah, full and final and journal entry. So that's how. So there is a setting over there. Yeah, but there is also a checkbox here to mark things that are paid via salary. So in case of additional salary, maybe you just want to have it in the FNF as a part of documenting, but you don't want an accounting impact from here. So in that case, you can enable this. So that amount won't get added to your total payable or receivable amount, and that will be handled through payroll. So some companies prefer salary slip to be linked in the FNF for documenting purposes, but they still go through the normal payroll cycle. Yeah, so you can enable paid via salary slip in that case. Yeah, anything else? Okay. Okay, so we can start with leave management. There are a lot of moving pieces in leaves because companies like to control a lot of how leaves should be allocated or used. So we'll start with some basics. I hope the flowchart is visible on the screen correctly. Okay. So whenever you manage leaves, you also need holidays, right? Because to see how when to take leaves and how many leaves should be calculated in the system. So in that case, we have a holiday list doc type. So you can set some. So let's say we create a holiday list for this year, starting from 1st of Jan to 31st, and you can add weekly offs. So let's say mostly people have Saturdays and Sundays off. And there are also certain local holidays based on your country, right? So we can select the country over here and add. Okay, so we have these holidays for Kenya that are auto-fetched through some service that we have. So these are estimated dates so that you don't have to go through the calendar and figure out and enter the holiday list here. So you can have this and edit and add holidays if there are more, or remove the auto-generated ones. So once you create a holiday list, there are different places where you can link holiday list. So in some companies, there is a same holiday list for the entire company. So every employee has the same set of holidays. But in some cases, it's different for every employee based on department designation, all of that. So in company, if it's company level, then you can go and set it over here in default holiday list. Once you do that, any employee that you create against this company will have holidays based on this holiday list that we just created. And if you don't want to do that and override the company set default, then you can go to an employee individually and link a separate holiday list over here. So how this works is this gets the first preference, employee level holiday list. And if it doesn't find an employee level holiday list, it falls back to the company one. So for certain employees, you can override this in the employee master. So once you have created the holiday list, there are certain leave types. So some are pretty straightforward, like casual, sick leaves. There is something called as earned leaves. So in case of earned leaves, the employee doesn't get all 30 leaves immediately. Let's say your annual allocation is 30 or 12 for simplicity. So they don't get 12 leaves at once. Every month they'll get one leave entitled or earned, and that keeps the balance keeps increasing. So let's say these are the leave types: casual, sick, earned, and this is your annual allocation. When you create initial allocation for an earned leave, it will be 0 because they'll get it at the end of the month. And then first month, one gets added to the balance, and at the end of the 12th month, you will have all 12 leaves in case of earned. But in casual and sick leave, you get the balance leave immediately. So we'll quickly go through all the settings in the leave type master. Okay, so sometimes the companies limit the number of leaves that can be allocated for a leave type per leave period. So let's say for annual vacation, you cannot allocate more than 30 if you have set the limit over here. So whenever you create a leave allocation, it will check whatever value you have set here. If you have set some limit, it will throw a validation error. Then this is a field. So let's say your new employees have joined. Some companies, what they want is till first 3 months end, they don't want the employees to apply for any leave. So the leave balance will be there, but they'll only be able to apply after they finish their probation period or whatever. So in that case, you can set the number of days after which they can start applying for leaves from their joining date. Then consecutive leaves allowed. Let's say you don't want to allow more than 10 casual leaves. You can set the maximum consecutive leaves that you want to allow over here. And then there are other checks like do you want to allow carry forwarding this leave to next year? Do you want to enable leave without pay or partially paid leave? So by default, all leaves are paid leaves. So if you are taking a leave, your pay doesn't reduce. But in some cases, you might want to have a leave without pay, like maybe a sabbatical leave. So employee goes on sabbatical for say, let's say 3 months. In that case, you want to allow them that break, but you don't want to pay for the days they were not available, right? So you can enable leave without pay in that case. There are certain other things like allow negative balance. So in case of sick leaves, I think you can't really limit the number of sick days. Some companies don't want to limit. So you can allow negative balance. Even if they exhaust all the leaves allocated to them, they can still apply and go through and take the leave. So you can enable this for that. And so include holidays within leaves as leaves. Let's say you take a leave from you take one leave on Friday and another one on Monday. So companies want Saturday, Sunday to also be considered as leave and not holiday, even though it was a weekly off. So in that case, you can enable this. So that will add like 4 leaves instead of 2 leaves to your, reduce that from your balance. And then there is compensatory leave. So in case of compensatory leave, it's not like usual leave. So compensatory leave is when you worked on a holiday. So now you want to compensate for it. Like get a leave in return because you worked on a holiday, right? So that happens through another flow. We'll come to that. Okay, so when you are carry forwarding, you can set some other limits as well, like how many maximum carry forwarding you want to allow. So let's say you are allocating like 30 leaves per year, but you don't want the employees to carry forward more than 10 in a year. Let's say they didn't use their leaves at all, but you want to set a limit on how much can they carry forward to the next leave period. In that case, you can set the maximum carry forwarded leaves to 10. So it will while creating the allocation for the next year, it won't carry forward more than 10 leaves of this leave type. And there are more settings like expiring the carry forwarded leave. So let's say I carry forwarded 10 leaves from the previous year, but I want to set a limit that these leaves should be used within first 60 days of the year, let's say. So after that they'll get expired. So you can set that expiry in here in days. And talking about earned leave, right, what I explained, so you don't get the entitlement all at once, but you get it, like the allocation happens every month. So you can enable earned leave, and then you can select some other things like, do you want the leave to get allocated on the first day of the month, the last day of the month, or the date of joining? So let's say an employee joined on 15th of Jan. So every month they should get the leave on 15th of Feb, 15th of March and so on. So people love control as much as they want on leave entitlements and allocation. And there is also rounding. So in case of 12, the math is pretty straightforward, like 1 leave per month works fine. But maybe the annual allocation is something like 22, and when you divide that by 12, there will be rounding. So you might get some leave like 0.6 days, which is not really usable, right? So you can set up rounding in that case where you round that to one whole leave when the allocation happens. But these rounding and all I have seen mostly used in Middle East, where they have like time based, every hour they calculate payroll and so on. Yeah. So okay, so once you configure your leave type master, like what kind of leaves do you want, casual, sick, earned, compensatory, etc. There is something called as leave policy. So what you do in leave policy is you group the number of leave types, like casual leave in 1 year, I want to allocate 20 leaves, and sick leave I want to allocate 10. Now you can create leave policies for each department. For engineering it could be different, for sales it could be different, and you can group all the leave types with the annual allocation for each. So this is like a master that serves all your data on how you want to allocate leaves. And then there is leave allocation. So leave allocation can happen directly for casual and sick leave, but if you have created a leave policy. So the crux of this is leave allocation is direct leave type mapping. So I'll just show you. So for example, this is a leave allocation for the sick leave. But when I don't want to create like 50 leave allocations manually for sick leave, for every sick plus casual, so like that's like 100 documents. So in that case, you can create a single policy for each department with a grouping of all like casual, sick, etc. And then there is something called as leave policy assignment, which lets you select a policy against an employee, and on submission it will create all leave allocations. So if you had like 5 leave types that you wanted to allocate, you just create a leave policy, a policy assignment, and when you submit it, all the 7 leave types will get allocated. There are even easier way to do this for bulk handling. We'll come to that in some time. So that's what leave policy assignment is. So you can set the assignment based on leave period and select the leave period. So there are different years. So let's say you are also adding backdated data from the last year. So you can create last year's leave period, select the leave period for last year as well. And then you select the policy that you want to assign to this particular employee. There is also this check to whether to consider carry forwarded leaves in this or not. So sometimes you might have enabled carry forwarding in your leave type, but for some leave policy assignment you want to skip carry forwarding. In that case, you can keep it unchecked, so previous allocated leave balance won't be carry forwarded to the next year. So this is leave policy assignment, and this at the end it creates a leave allocation. For casual and sick, you can directly, like if you just have one leave type, just go for a leave allocation directly. Policy assignment will help you group the leaves. And compensatory leave, as I said, is different. Like you don't get an allocation, you get it every time you work on a holiday, right? So there is a different doc type for this called compensatory leave request, wherein what you have to do is select the leave type. Maybe there are 2 types of compensatory leaves that you have created in the system, and you have to enter the worked on holiday dates. So let's say you worked on Saturday and Sunday, you select those dates over here from 30th March to 31st March, and if you have a half day or something. And once you do that and submit the compensatory leave allocation, compensatory leave request, one leave gets added to your leave allocation. So every time you create a compensatory leave request for every holiday you worked on, your allocation will keep increasing your balance for that comp off leave. And then you can use a leave application to use your comp offs for all the days that you worked on holidays. Yeah. So about all the transactions in leave management, the ones marked in green is increasing the balance of your leave entitlement, and red is decreasing the balance. So leave allocation, we just saw, it adds balance to your annual allocation. Then there is carry forwarding that you can do from one leave period to another, leave allocation to another, that will reduce the balance. There is leave application that will also reduce the balance from your allocation. And there is leave encashment. So sometimes you apply for leaves, but you have some leaves pending. So people decide whether they want to carry forward it to next year, or do they want to encash the leaves and get paid for it. So that happens through leave encashment. And all of these, like if you know accounting, you might know general ledger, right, which takes care of all your accounting impact, debit, credit, transactions, everything. Similarly, we have a leave ledger which keeps a historical track of your allocations, applications, encashments, and how your leaves are getting used. So this is an overview. So I showed the leave allocation. There is leave application. So let's say I don't have leaves for this period, so I'll just quickly create a allocation for. So I created an allocation and so I added 20 leaves, right? So you can view the leave ledger between any two dates and select the transaction that you want to filter against. So for these dates, I got plus 20 balance. And whenever I go and apply for a leave, I see the balance for each leave with a breakdown. So for each leave type, how many have expired, how many I have already used, how many have applied but they weren't approved yet. So the leave balance is not consumed, but there is an open leave application in the system, and how many I have available. So in this case, I just created an allocation, so I have all 20 available. And the leave approver gets auto-fetched from your employee master. So we saw in the beginning that employee had a approver section where you can set the approvers, the leave approver, shift request approver, expense claim approver. So that gets auto-fetched over here. Okay. And then there are workflows. So sometimes your setup is pretty straightforward. Like there is just one leave approver and they'll approve your leave and that gets done. But sometimes it's more complex than that. Like you want multi-level approvals for leaves, claims, shift requests, all of that. So in that case, you can create a workflow. Workflow, I think, was showcased in yesterday's session as well, where you can have different roles. Like one is the leave approver, the second level can come from HR manager and or your reporting manager. So you can set up workflows in that case where you want to have multi-level approvals. So the workflows work in the desk as well as the mobile app. Employees' leaves won't get consumed unless the entire workflow goes through. So in this case, I have a pretty simple approval rejection flow. So now I did the application. Okay. I'll come to this in a bit. Application is done and okay, leave encashment. So in case of leave encashment, you will get the leave balance over here based on the date you set in encashment. So what was the leave balance at that point of time in that year? You get some leave balance and then you can set how many encashment days you want to use from that period. So once you create an encashment, again it affects the ledger where your balance gets reduced, and there is also additional salary mapping. So to encash the leaves, you want to pay out the employees, right? So it will create an additional salary record with the value of leaves for each leave type. So you can set the leave encashment amount per day in your salary structure for your employees. So let's say you have 5 different structures for different departments and every one of them might have different encashment rate how much money you want to pay for each leave day that they encash. So you can set it up here, and let's say you have 6 as the leave balance and your encashment per day amount is 1000. So your encashment amount becomes 6000, right? So it will create an additional salary of 6000, and in your next payroll, it will get fetched in your components, and you get paid, like you can pay out the employee through this. So for example, this is overview of how your leaves got used up. And what is the balance at the end. So earned leaves or any leave, you can check the leave ledger on what happened in your system. So for leaves, there is also the leave application calendar view. Okay, do I have data here? Yeah. So it will show the leaves of all your team members as well as your leaves in the calendar view if you want to see who is on leave on what date and plan accordingly. There are some settings that affect this. So for leaves, do you want to show leaves of all department members in the calendar view or only the ones that you have permission for? So there is a concept of user permission where when employees log into the system, they will only be able to see their own records, not anyone else's. In case of reporting managers, they'll be able to see their records as well as the people reporting to them. But sometimes you might want to open this up for employees to view leave applications of all the members in the company, let's say for planning or reaching out to them or checking the availability. In that case, you can enable this and the calendar view will show all the details of leaves. There are certain other settings for leaves as well, like sending out leave notification to the approver. In case of approval or rejection, sending the status to the employee. Backdated leave applications, you want to restrict, like I didn't work on a certain day, but now I want to go back and like apply for a leave on that day. Some companies want to restrict that and reduce pay if the application was not submitted at the correct time. Then there are some other settings as well, like in case of leave approvers, right? They might not have an explicit approver, but they have access to approve and submit all the records because they have the role. But you might want to prevent self-leave approval for such HR managers or someone. So in that case, you can enable this checkbox, prevent self-approval for leaves. And then you can manually select who shall approve their leaves. So maybe one leave approver can approve the other ones and not the, like I don't get to approve my own leaves, right? So this setting helps you control that. And then there is auto leave encashment. So let's say my leaves were allocated from Jan to December this year, and on December I still have like 5 leaves pending, but I don't want to go and manually create a leave encashment. So I can enable this and the system will automatically create leave encashments on 31st of December in draft, so that you can go and at least check, and once you have checked all the auto created ones, you can submit and process in salaries. So the auto leave encashment setting helps you with that. Okay, so I was talking about bulk tools, because you wouldn't create allocations for 100 employees manually or even a policy assignment in that case. So there is a tool called leave control panel wherein you can set leaves based on, like, you want to allocate leaves based on leave period or joining date, and you select the leave policy that you want to allocate. And then there are certain filters on the control panel to fetch employees in bulk, like who all employees do you want to bulk allocate the leaves, right? So you can maybe filter it based on department, designation, employment type, branch, grade. There are advanced filters from the employee master, so you can select some field that is not in the standard filters, maybe some custom field that you have added and you want to filter based on that for bulk transactions. You can do that here, and once you have all the employees filtered out, select the leave policy, everything, and you can press allocate leaves. So it will give you a message on how many were successful and how many didn't go through, maybe due to some validation errors. So you have error logs over here, and you have the successfully created policy assignments over here. So you can go and check all of that. So in this case, the assignment failed because it was overlapping with some already existing assignment that they had for the same dates. So the leave control panel will take care of bulk allocating leaves, and you can also see the status of what didn't go through. So these are all the policy assignments it created. So apart from this, there are some other things like the leave block list. So let's say there are certain dates in the year that you want to block leaves on. Maybe it's some special conference or release in your company and you don't want employees to apply for leaves in those dates. You can set up a leave block list and block days, dates as well. And sometimes people want to block leaves on certain busy days, like maybe a Monday is very busy, or they have some scheduled tasks, or based on the type of job, you might have a lot of work. So you might want to block days on, let's say, Monday, Friday. In that case, you can select the day and add. Okay. So let's say in Feb, I want to block all Fridays. So it will add all the dates on that days to the leave block list. And there are certain users you can set up here that are allowed to override this. So let's say you have blocked leave on that day, so it will warn the employee that you can't apply for leave, but let's say it's a sick leave, so in that case you can't deny. So you can set up the users that are allowed to approve the blocked leave dates leave as well in this list. I think we are through with encashment, everything in leave. So this is how the mobile app looks like. You have the leave balance. We'll see an overview of the app as well later. You can see the calendar view for all employee leaves in the department, block leave requests, encash. configuring earned leaves, so on and so forth. And there are certain other reports as well. So if you go to the leaves workspace, there is employee leave balance. So in this case, against each leave type, I see all the employees and how much balance did they have. So here I see new leaves, how many were allocated, how many were taken, how many expired between 2 dates. So you can view the employee leave balance report for this. And then there is balance summary, which is not just one leave type, but like it gives you for every employee against each leave type, what is the current like balance on this particular date. So you can check these reports if you want to see what's the current state of balance for any employee. There are filters for like filtering out one particular employee that you want to see. So I just allocated 20 leaves few minutes ago and I used 2, right? So my current balance is 18 against annual leave. I can go and check for some other date. Okay, I didn't have an allocation back then. Yeah, so I think this covers leaves. If you have any doubts, you can ask. Yeah.
So just a quick one. On the leave days, for example, in a restaurant setting, when people work on bank holidays, they literally don't want the leave days back. They want it for time payment. Is there what we can do?
So overtime is not currently available in the system, but it's in development right now. So we'll have that, but that is still not linked to, I think, people working on holidays. So there is a concept of overtime slip for a month where you might link it to timesheets or pull attendance records. So we can see how. Maybe you can raise a GitHub issue with your complete use case, so we can see how that can be mapped.
Because in most restaurants, example, people don't naturally get leave days back. They just want the payment at the end of the month.
Correct. So we don't have that right now. Right now, if you want to do that, then the only way is creating an additional salary for those days. So that will need some scripting if you want to automate it, like maybe a background job that checks all the people who have worked today, like based on attendance and it was a holiday, and based on your rate or something, it will automatically create additional salaries, and that will come in payroll. But the overtime piece is missing, so that I think the feature will partially solve that. Anything else? Yeah.
So in Tanzania, we have this scenario whereby we have 5 standard leave types, whereby 4 of them they are allocated on yearly basis. And
Okay.
one of them, just one sick leave, is allocated on a 3-year basis from like for 3 years, 63 days applicable for 3 years. Is there a way we can manage all together in one leave policy?
Maybe you can create the leave period itself of 3 years instead of 1, because leave period dates are configurable, and then you set the frequency to yearly. So in case of yearly, and there are 3 years, so every year you get some based on your annual allocation. So you can try that. I think that should work. If it's something else and you need more control on the entitlement, that will need some scripting on allocation or background jobs. So there is leave type. Yeah. So in leave type you have, under earned leave you have the leave frequency. So by default it's monthly, but you can set it to yearly. And as I said, the leave period, right? So leave period, these from and to dates are configurable. So usually people have like 12 months you can extend this to the third year's end date. So that becomes 3 years and the frequency is yearly. So
And just one more question I have. When we are doing leave application for half day, for example, employee took half day from Monday to Friday. So in leave balance, will it show like 5 half days or it will combine like 1, 2 and 2.5 half days?
balance is summation. So it will show, like if there are 2 half days, 1 whole leave is consumed. But in leave ledger, it will show the historical data of both the leave applications. So balance will show you summation, like the,
So leave application will be 1 from Monday to Friday,
okay.
5 half days. So the balance will be 5 half days.
Yeah, I think 2.5.
So first is like how it was just 2.5, but then when a customer requested it to be like 5 days, so the person took 5 times. So if is there a way to keep it like 5 days?
No, so half day considers it as 0.5. You can't keep it a full day. So it's just number of leave applications, right? Not, so they don't, the balance will still be 2.5. So you can use report builder to generate a custom report or something, maybe. Or you'll have to write a separate script report for this. So, yeah. Irrespective of the dates, the date range that you select, based on that the report should show the number. That will need a script report. But balance will show it as 2.5 only. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
In data migration for leave balance, is it correct if I say that you can import the leave balance using the data import tool?
So you can import the leave allocation records for the previous year using the leave data import tool. So let's say you are migrating from some old system, right? You will have the closing balance of that year, like how many leaves did they have at the end of the year pending in that system. You can export that and do a data import in the system for leave allocation doc type with those numbers. So that will become your balance for the previous year, and this year you are starting fresh. So you can carry forward that balance to this year as well from your old. Does that answer your question?
Not really. And that is the trick. You have the leave allocation, okay? But remember you are migrating data from a previous system. Okay, assuming QuickBooks or SAP or Oracle. Okay? So you have the leave balance last year. Okay? You want to carry over that balance to the next system. Do you use a data import facility? Or which tool is available to add that to the current year?
So can we take an example? So let's say last year's you were using some system and you migrated to Frappe HR this year, and you had, let's say, sick leaves and casual leaves for every employee, and you might have some data on how much closing balance you had for per employee per leave type, the closing balance, right? So in that case you can create leave allocation for previous year, not this year. That will give you historical data for the previous year, and then you can proceed with the current years. So there is no, you might be looking for something that will let you set the opening balance for the current year, right? So that's not explicit right now, it's through leave allocation from the previous year. That's the current method, but we could have a feature for, like in accounting you add opening balances, maybe we could have it for leave allocations as well. So migration becomes easier. Will that solve your problem?
So you treat it as a leave allocation.
Yeah, but we'll have internal handling, like some tool for you to import opening balances for allocations this year. Opening as in, even before you create any allocation this year, how much do you already have from the previous one? So we could have a feature for that. Currently you will have to create import allocations for 2024 from the balance you had in the previous year, and then in 2025 you create fresh allocations and carry forward the previous ones. So you will have to do two times, like one for the previous year data import and fresh allocations for this year through leave control panel maybe.
So you create first for the previous year, then you create for the...
Yeah, with carry forwarding.
You carry forward. So that's the easiest option.
Yeah, currently that's the easiest option. Yeah.
So your idea is the challenge for your next to do that.
Yeah.
I hope they also have the same issue, those who are dealt with.
Yeah, opening balances, I think we have it in the feature list as well. So we'll take it up the team will work on it. But currently that's the method. You will have to import allocations for previous year and create fresh allocations and enable carry forwarding. Anyone else? Yeah.
So on the block leave days,
Huh.
we should go to the block people for apply for certain days. Are they still able to apply for it regardless? Because we're showing that someone can still approve it. So for example, there are block Fridays. Can employee still apply for that Friday anymore?
So they'll get a warning that this is a block leave. It won't let you submit, like the balance won't, even if the approver tries to submit it, there will be a validation that this is blocked. But if you have set the allowed users there in the table who are allowed to override blocked leaves, they can go and approve it. If you don't set it, then the leave application can't be submitted, so your leaves won't get consumed. But application is still allowed because sometimes it's an emergency, something like that. So
And also, is there like a provision to set so for example, I can't just wake up today and say I'm not applying for leave tomorrow. Is there provision to say that you have to give a couple of days before you apply for leave days? So for example, you have to come in 2 days in advance, a day in advance before you apply for certain days. Is there a provision for that?
So leave application, you can create leave application in advance for.
So let's say I want to go on leave tomorrow. Can I apply for, let's say, today? Instead of, so in the sense of, I'm talking about giving some time.
So you want to restrict force people to apply for leaves well in advance.
No. So let's say I want to go on leave tomorrow. I want to maybe set up a system in the sense that maybe before you apply for that leave, you have given the company some notice. So the system can prepare. So in terms of, let's say, if someone's applying for tomorrow, they apply maybe 3 days before. We send the request 2 days before.
No, so there has to be some leave application in the system created for tomorrow. Then you could set up maybe through notification doc type. So there is this days before configuration and you select the leave application. Sorry. You can set some reference date. So like from date 3 days before the from date, right?
Yeah.
So you can set the reference date as from date and days before to 3. And then you can set some condition like this might not be applicable on all types of leaves maybe or all types of designations. So you can set up a notification for this. So if you have the leave application in the system well in advance, the notification will check 3 days before. If there is a leave application, it will send a notification to whatever recipients you set over here. So maybe the approver itself or the applicant both get a notification to finish their work or whatever deadlines they have to complete. Anything else? No? Okay. So the other two modules are huge. I think we can do that after the break. I can maybe quickly run through expense claims module. Um, so we have a concept of claims and advances in Frappe HR. So advance is basically some advance payment that you give to the employee. Let's say they are traveling for some company purpose and you want to give them some advance for the travel. So you create employee advances and then later when your travel is done, you want to claim how much expenses you actually incurred on the trip. So in that case, the system takes care of allocating the advances that you have already paid out against the claims. So let's say you paid out 5,000 advance and you end up spending 10,000, and when you create an expense claim, it will auto allocate 5,000, so you only need to pay 5,000 more to the employee, right, based on the claim. So that's what expense claim and employee advance is. So this is what the employee advance looks like. You have to select the employee, the purpose and the advance amount that you are paying out to them. So the employee advance tracks all these fields. There is the paid amount. Sometimes employee advance is created for 5,000 but you only pay in parts. Let's say you pay out 2,000 first and then 3,000. So in that case, this paid amount field will take care of partial payments. How much you actually claimed from this, right? So out of 5,000, 2,000 I've already claimed, and then there is return. So once you get an advance, you either claim it with your expenses or you return the amount of your advance. So let's say my company paid me 20,000 but I only ended up using 10,000, so I have to return the 10,000 back, right? So that's what advance lets you do. So for example, this is an employee advance of 5,000, so we can create a payment entry against it. Yeah, I have some issue with my accounting setup. So in this case, this is a returned employee advance. So you paid out 500, but the employee didn't use or claim anything and you returned it. So how do you return an advances? There are options. So you create an expense claim against a paid advance or you create a return entry. So return entry is basically a journal entry. But let's say you want to handle this in payroll itself, right? So there is an option of enabling repay unclaimed amount from salary. So what this will do is, let me create one. So what this will do is, when you set up, when you're trying to, okay, this is a paid advance and I have enabled repay unclaimed amount from salary. I'll get an option to deduct the advance from salary because you paid in advance, right? So you want to deduct in the next salary, not in journal entry. So this will create an additional salary with the amount. Yeah, so once you create an advance, you claim it or you return it either through journal entry or through payroll with deduction from salary through additional salary. So this is expense claim. So this I have an advance, paid advance of 5,000 to this employee, and I've already claimed 2,000. I have multiple advances against this employee. So I've claimed this conference expense of 7,000 as an employee. So what the system will do is it will fetch all the advance payments against the claim, and so this is the advance that we were looking at, 5,000. Out of 5,000, 2,000 is already claimed, so 3,000 I can still allocate against the advances. So this will be automatically set when you create an expense claim, and then it will calculate how much do you actually need to pay, like the difference. Similarly, for expense claim, you create a payment entry with the paid amount, and once you do that, your expense claim gets marked as paid. You have ledger entries against a claim too. So you can see what all accounts were hit because of the expense claim payment. So these expense claim types come auto created with the system, some of them, but you can create your own expense claim types which don't fall in this category so that people can use that master while claiming. And you have an employee advance summary report wherein you can see the against all employees the advance amount that you paid, the paid amount, like the advance amount they asked for, paid amount, claimed amount, and the current status for each advance. Yeah. So this is the dashboard for claims. You get claims by type. So you have maximum claims for the travel type, followed by medical. What is the current status of advances? Department wise expense claim, which department claims the most amount of expenses, etc. And then there is a report for unpaid expense claims. So let's say you decided month and date where you want to settle all the claims. You can check this report and go to the claims and handle the processing for them. Okay. Any doubt in claims or anything discussed so far? Okay. Maybe we can take a break now. So you can define your payroll period if it's like different from your financial fiscal year or some custom payroll period dates you want to set. So you start by creating the payroll period. That will affect how all your reporting happens. So based on your payroll period, the report filters will get auto set. Once you are done with that, this is the whole flow. So you create something called as a salary component. So there are two types of components within Frappe HR. One is earnings and other is deduction. So earnings for all your components like basic house rent allowance, all of that, and deductions is for tax or any other deductions that you want to consider, even the ones that come from additional salary. So your pay structure, even though there is a salary structure, you can always add different components on the fly that you would want to consider on certain months through additional salary. So additional salary helps you plug in more earnings or deductions in months. So there is salary component structure, and then you assign the structure. Once you do that, you can generate a payroll entry. So payroll entry is like a bulk creation tool for salary slips. So let's say you have like 10,000, 15,000 employees. It's not possible to create salary slips for each and every one. So payroll entry allows you to set filters to fetch relevant employees and generate a payroll entry for all of them together. And then there are other things that affect the salary slip. So like I said, the employee advance deduction that we talked about in claims, employee incentive and retention bonus, all these three doc types on submission create an additional salary. So additional salary becomes the single source of truth for any flexible component that you add in any month, and salary slip fetches all the additional salaries applicable for that month. So then there are different other functionalities also, like withholding salaries. For example, if someone has resigned and you want to withhold the salary for 3 months till they serve the notice period. So there is a separate doc type for creating salary withholding, where the salary slip will be generated with withheld status and expenses will be booked for it, but the actual payment does not happen. So the payment is withheld, and later on you can release the salary slips in the next payroll. You can release the payments for old withheld slips. So that's like a bird's eye view of payroll module. So we'll start with salary component master and how it works and what all configurations are available. So for example, this is a basic salary component. So you will have some abbreviation. So abbreviations are important because you refer to them while setting formulas on your salary components. So as I said, there are two types. One is earning, one is deduction. And you have to set up the accounting. So let's say it's a multi-company scenario. One company is in India, one is in Kenya. So you can also have per company accounting setup here. Then there are a bunch of other things. So some components depend on the payment days. Like if you have worked for lesser days than the total working days in the month, then you would want to deduct salary for that component. So you can enable this if that particular component is sensitive to payment days calculations. Is tax applicable on that component? Then some other things. So for example, there is a statistical component wherein so let's say you have some component which you don't want to show in the salary slip, but you want to use it in the calculation for some other component. So that's what statistical component is for. So you use it as a just for calculation to refer it in other doc types, but it won't show up in the salary slip, nor will it affect your accounts, and it won't even show up in print formats. So that's what a statistical component is for. And as you would expect in a component, you have configuration for setting a flat amount. So if a component is like, let's say 50,000 Kenyan shillings, so you can set the flat amount here. But if it varies on a number of factors based on other things, then you can set a formula for the component. And there is also condition. So sometimes not all components are applicable for all the employees. So you might want to, or even genders in some cases, like government driven entitlements where you want to enable certain component types only for a certain gender. So you get this auto completion from employee fields, salary component fields. So you can set the gender values here. So meaning this particular basic component will now only be valid for when the gender is female. And where does this value come from? It comes from your employee master. So yeah, this gender field. So all the employees who satisfy this condition, this component will show up in their salary slip. And then there is formula. So I can show some. So for example, special allowance is another salary component which is supposed to be zero 0.4 of the base. So you can derive other components based on the existing components. Usually people go with base because that's like irrespective of the payment days, the monthly base mostly remains same. So you can devise your formula based on the base and other components as well. So there are some examples given over here. So condition also, if base is less than certain amount, then you don't need this component there, and so on. So this was about condition and formula. Now let's look at the salary structure. So once you create all the salary components, you would go and create a salary structure. So your salary structure can have all the components selected, their abbreviation and everything will be pulled in, and the formula that you have set there. Now you can also, that's the default formula set in the component level, but in some structure, if you want to change and override the formula, you can do that in the structure. So you can add all your components here, deductions as well, set up the accounts, mode of payment and the payment account from your ledger, and there are some other things. So payroll frequency, usually I think payroll frequency people go for monthly, but there are other frequencies like weekly, so on. So okay, so let's say you created like 20 different structures based on one single component, and now you want to change the formula of the component. You wouldn't want to go to every structure and change it, right? So what you can do is in the salary component itself, you can change the formula, and then you go to update salary structures and you sync the formula. So it gives you the list of all the salary structures it's going to update the formula for, and you can do that here. So this allows you to keep your components and structures in check, in sync, both for condition and formula. Okay, so we talked about payment days a lot, but like how does attendance and leave affect payroll, right? That you would want to understand. So there are some settings under payroll settings. So you can control how the calculation can happen, like working days, payroll working days can be calculated based on attendance or leave. So let's start from here. You start to calculate the base payment days. Let's say in the month of January you have 31 days and you had 6 holidays. So now it will check if this checkbox is enabled. So if you want to include holidays in total number of working days, like you want to consider the holidays as well in the working days, then it will show up as 31 days. If not, then it's 31 minus 6. So that becomes 25 if that setting is disabled. Otherwise, it's 31. Then the next setting it checks is what is the payroll based on? Is it based on attendance or is it based on leave? So if payroll is based on attendance, you get another option whether to consider the unmarked attendance as present or absent by default. So what some companies prefer is they don't explicitly go and mark attendance for every day unless it's absent. So because like that saves you a lot of work, right? Maintaining. So in payroll you can configure payroll based on attendance and consider unmarked as present. So unless you explicitly mark attendance, unmarked is always considered as present. So yeah, so attendance, if consider unmarked attendance as is based on present days. So in this case, let's say all my 31 days are unmarked, so my payment days and total working days are same till now. But if it's considered as absent and I have 6 absent records, right? So I'll deduct absent records from here. Now once it has checked the attendance, it will also check for leave without pay leaves that you have. So in leave type, we had seen this configuration for leave without pay. For example, this leave is leave without pay. So you want to deduct the number of unpaid days from payroll too, right? So so is there any leave application created for leave without pay or partially paid leaves? If yes, then from those payment days, it will reduce those days as well. Let's say 6 days of leave LWP you had applied for. Now your payment days become 19. If it's considering full payment days, like you have no leave without pay or partially paid leave in the month, then it's the complete 31 days that come through. So if your payroll is based on leave, you don't need to mark attendance explicitly. If you are just running Frappe HR for payroll and you set this to payroll based on leave, you just have to take care of having the correct data of leave without pay and partially paid leaves in the system. Attendance management wouldn't be a hassle for you. So if it's based on leave, it checks all the leave applications for the month, checks if there are any leave without pay or partially paid leaves, and again it deducts pay based on that. So based on all these settings, you get this payment days. Yeah, payment days tab. So my working days in this particular month were 31, but my payment days are 26 based on all the leave without pay attendance records that I have. And this will in turn affect your salary calculation for all the components that have depends on payment days enabled. So we had seen this particular structure where this basic is dependent on payment days, but HRA is not. So based on the calculated payment days, all your components will get automatically adjusted. So once you have set up salary components and salary structure, there is something called as income tax slab. So based on your country's tax slabs, you can create multiple tax slabs for the from amount, to amount and percentage deduction. You can also have conditions over here. For example, this particular slab is only applicable if, let's say, your gross pay is above some amount. So you can set those conditions over here. Then there are some other settings. So how do you want to manage emailing the salary slips to employees? Do you want to email it on salary slip submission? And if you want to encrypt the salary slips in the email, you can set up some password policy for this. So the employees, when they get the email, the PDF will be protected and they'll have to enter the password to access their salary slips. So this allows you to have one more level of security, sort of. And you can create a custom email template on the salary slip email that you want to configure. Then there are some other settings like disabling rounded total. So when you get 0.99 some amounts in your components, you might want to round the total. If you want to disable, you can enable this. So rounding is also configured at the salary component level. So it says round to nearest integer. So some salary components you don't want to keep in fractions or decimals. You might want to always have them as integers. So in that case, for those components you can enable this. So we saw payroll period, salary component, salary structure. Now there is salary structure assignment. So let's go to the doc type. Even from salary structure, you can create single assignment or bulk assignments. So in single assignments, you just have to select the employee, select the structure, from when is it applicable, the income tax slab for it, and some base. This is the monthly base amount for that employee. So this would be different for every employee. Usually when you start the financial year, you would want to create all the salary structure assignments for the employees with the base and variable fields. And then there is something else called as payroll cost centers. So just grab an example. Yeah. So for example, this particular employee, sometimes the contribution is very straightforward, like engineering. But let's say at higher levels, like leaders and all, they might be contributing to more than one department. So if you want to book your accounting for, if you manage like department-wise accounting and you want to have multiple cost centers for each department. So you can set a split on the salary structure assignment level, that whatever salary gets calculated for this particular employee, book 70% of it in engineering cost center and 30% of it in support. So that's how you can get actual amount for cost centers in your ledgers. So this is salary structure assignment. There is another way to do this a bit efficiently, like you can create bulk assignments using the bulk salary structure assignment tool. Again, the format is similar to all the other tools we saw. So you select the from date, the company, tax slab, and you get all the employees who don't have an active structure assigned at that particular day. And then you can go ahead, and there are again filters to fetch specific set of employees for this. So you can update base and variable in bulk from here. If variable is applicable, and then you assign the structure. So this allows you to create salary structure assignments in bulk. So now you have configured component structures, assigned it to employees, you have bulk salary structure for bulk assignments. So now we can go ahead and proceed with a payroll entry, right? So let me create a payroll entry for a monthly one for the month of Jan. So I created a payroll entry. Now I can set filters for fetching the employees for this payroll entry. So sometimes there are companies with like lakhs or thousands of employees where one single payroll entry is not created for everyone, and even the payment release date is different for different departments maybe. So in that case you can filter out employees and have like 10 different payroll entries managed by 10 different HR managers of that department. So payroll entry helps you group employees together to manage accounting and scale. So here if I don't set any filters, all the employees who have an active salary structure assignment on my payroll period, like the start date, will be fetched. So this will consider all the employees who have joined in that month, who are relieving in that month, who have valid assignments. So I can go ahead and like manually remove some employees if I want. And then I go ahead and create salary slips from here. So if I go to connections, it created 9 salary slips against that payroll entry, right? So I can go ahead and check the payment days, earning deduction, all the components based on my salary structure. The net pay info is here. So gross pay is basically addition of all your earnings, and net pay is gross pay minus your deductions. So you get this 94,000, and there are other things like accounting impact, so bank details, okay. So these were the salary slips. Now I can go ahead and submit the salary slips, and it says that it will book an accrual journal entry for this. So what happens here is, in accounting there is double entry booking system, right? So you book expenses first and then you settle. So you are like liable to pay the employee through accrual journal entry, and then when you actually release the payment you do a bank entry. So there are 2 journal entries created against a single payroll entry. So I'll submit this. Okay. Yeah, so the salary slips have now been submitted, and in connections you can see a journal entry against this. Uh, नहीं रहे. So you can see in this journal entry, against each entry, I have an employee linking, right? So I get my journal entries based on employee linking for every accounting entry that's going in. So that is controlled with this setting in payroll, process payroll accounting entries based on employee. If I disable this, so let's say okay. So let's make a bank entry. So we booked the expense entry, now we do a bank entry. I'll set the bank account and this is my bank entry, and here you see there is no party linking because I disabled the setting. So if you are okay with like consolidated booking for debit credit and you don't want that employee level accounting everywhere, then this is good. If you want, then you can explicitly enable the setting under payroll settings. Why would this be useful is, so accounting comes with a bunch of reports. So there is accounts receivable and payable. So in that you can select parties even in general ledger. So you have a party type for employee and you can actually check against each employee what are your transactions. So if you enable employee wise accounting entry booking, then you will have a more detailed view of ledgers. So this was my bank entry and I can submit it after setting some reference details. So this is my whole payroll entry cycle. So we created a component structure, assignment, payroll entry, and that created the salary slips. There is this additional salary that gets created on all the linked documents, right? Or you can even manually create it. For example, this additional salary got created against a performance bonus. So if it's created, auto-created from something, you will find the references here. So for example, this was an employee advance deduction that created it. So you can go to the document and check what was the entry. So how do you figure out in your payroll entry what was an additional salary component and what was the structure component, right? So if I go to So for example, in this salary slip, I can see all the components here, and this is my performance bonus that I showed. So the additional salary will be linked here. So by that you can figure out that these were structural components that came from your salary structure, and performance bonus was just one-off component that you added in a month, which was linked to a additional salary. And then you get all the deductions over here. So there is something called a salary withholding as well. So like I said, when employee's relieving date is set and you want to, let's say, withhold salary for 2 months, you can create a salary withholding document and you can set the from and to dates, and it will automatically set the cycles, applicable cycles based on the payroll frequency. So since this is for 2 months, 2 payroll entries will be withheld, right? So it will set the dates here, and when you run the actual payroll, so for example, let's look at the payroll linked to this. So when you see the employee table, you will see a salary withholding was created against this employee. So you can see the flag when you auto fetch employees, and if it is withheld, then a salary slip will still be created but with a withheld status. So what's the difference between a withheld salary slip and a normal salary slip, right? So what it will do is this was my first accounting entry, which is accrual journal entry, and here it created an entry, accounting entry for both the employees. So it booked expenses for my withheld salary slip as well, because legally I am liable to pay that, right? Not right now but later. So it will still book expenses for the salary slip, but if you check the journal entry, then it only created journal entry against one employee. So your actual payment is withheld but expense is booked, and then later you get this button over here. If you go back to some previous payroll entry and there are some employees whose salary was withheld, you get a button to release the withheld salaries. So what that will do is create the pending journal entry for how many ever employees you had withheld salary slip for. And then once you do that, so once you do that, there is my salary slip changed to submitted, it was withheld, and you can find the salary withholding as well. So this is still withheld because there were 2 payroll entries to be withheld, right? And I have released only one. So once I release both of them, this will change to released. Yeah. So that's the salary withholding flow. Then there are some other reports that help you understand payroll. So for example, so for the month of Jan, I only had one salary slip, but you get all the details over here, the basic gross pay, deductions, everything, the payment days. Yeah, so this is how you can review a payroll cycle. So you can set the dates and it will give you a complete overview of that particular cycle with all the details. So you can also check this at a glance before submitting the salary slips and finalizing accounting entries to see whether everything is fine. Did you miss some additional salary component configuration? Because you can't go and open every salary slip to see if everything has worked out fine. So you can also export your salary register if let's say you do accounting or payroll with some external payroll consultant. In that case, you can export this and submit the report to them to release the payments, etc. So this is how the salary register helps you. Then there are some other reports like income tax computation, which this is more for Indian use case where you have like exemptions and different tax deductions, etc. So it just gives you a breakdown of how the tax amount was calculated. Even in Kenya, you might have some income tax slabs that you map. So it will give you how the system actually came to that amount, like what was the CTC, out of the CTC, what was their actual taxable amount. So we had seen a checkbox in salary component which said it is tax applicable, because not all components are applicable for taxation. So it will show you all the amount breakdown. And then there are some other things. So we looked at general ledger. If you enable employee wise accounting, you will see all the entries that happened against that employee. And then there are like declarations and stuff, which is again closer to Indian payroll. So I won't go into the details of that. So this was payroll based on leaves and attendance, right? So what if you have timesheet based payroll, which is you don't really mark attendance or payment days, or even if you do, there is one component where it's based on timesheet. So overtime can be mapped with timesheets as well. So for example, this is a timesheet. I'll have all my activity type logged here. Let's say I'm working on some consultancy project. So I'll log all my activities, my hours over here, and then I have an option to have a salary slip against the time. So this is more structured, I think. So you have multiple activity types, and there is billing flow, which is different, takes you to sales invoice for billing the timesheets. But you can also create salary slips against a timesheet. So for example, this is the salary slip created against it. From my timesheet, I got my working hours as 24.5 and I have my normal components over here. So these are all based on condition and formula or flat amounts, and this came from my timesheet. So how does this happen is, in the salary structure, you have a checkbox for basing the salary on timesheets, and you select a component inside which you want to allocate the timesheet hours amount. So in this case it's basic, but you can create a component called overtime or time, billing time, whatever. So once you create a timesheet, some employees might have timesheet based structures, some might have attendance and payroll, both can coexist, and the payroll entry can handle all of these types together. So this is similar, like you could have extra earnings and deductions because payment days will still get calculated, but if you want to have a simple one-to-one mapping of timesheet to pay salary slip, that is also possible. So you also have another feature, which is, So when you create a salary structure assignment, uh, you wouldn't want to go to the actual payroll entry to check the salary slip, like what will be my final amounts. So in that case you can preview the salary slip as well before running the actual payroll. So this gives you all the components, gross pay, how the actual salary slip will be calculated, so that you can catch any configuration errors earlier. Um, so I think we have timesheet based payroll and okay. There is loans as well, but okay. So in case of loans, there is a separate app called Frappe Lending, which is a complete loan management solution. So where will this be used is when you are lending the employees some loan, and you want them to repay the loan through salary. So there are two ways to repay, right? Like direct accounting or entries, or deduct some amount every month through salaries. So you can do that by installing the lending app on your site. Let me just. So I have Frappe lending installed on this site along with HR, and there are certain doc types for this. Okay. So you can create loan products, home loan, car loan, whatever you want to offer your employees. And you can find detailed docs for this product on the product website as well as GitHub. But basically you set the loan amount, the rate of interest, and how you want to schedule the repayment. So is it prorated, is it monthly as per the repayment start date, and so on. And you configure all the accounts from here. So this is a master, like we have leave type, salary, component. Similarly, you create a loan product, and then you have a loan created against the loan product. So when you create a loan, you can choose to repay from salary by enabling this checkbox. So all this is fetched from the loan product itself. What it will do is, now I created this loan, once it's submitted it will generate a schedule for me. So this is the schedule, basically principal amount, interest amount, and total payment for every month. So I have like 20 months of repayment left, and this will all be considered in the salary slip for that employee. I don't think I have data for this, but so basically when you create a salary slip, under the earnings and deduction tab, you will see another section called loan repayment, where if there are any active loan repayments pending, they'll be auto fetched. So it can be more than one loan also, like car and home loan, and it will fetch the loan entry and how much they have to pay in that month based on the repayment schedule that it generated. So what it will do is your net pay will be earnings minus deduction minus loan. So loan is also getting repaid from your salary, so you deduct the loan amount monthly. And once you submit the salary slip, the loan repayment schedule will get updated that this particular month is now paid. So if I show you the loan repayment schedule, it will be linked with the salary slip or whatever I generate to settle the loan repayment amount for that month. So that's about payroll. Yeah. Any doubts in payroll or any things that you tried to configure which seem complex, we can talk about them now. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. I have two questions. One is a variable and a basic pay.
Variable pay and basic pay.
Yes, that field for variable. I would like to understand how well or how best to use that field.
Uh,
The second one
yeah.
is on the salary structure, that tab for accounts. You have shown two approaches. One where you consolidate the accounts to be paid, whether it's consolidated for all the employees, one for each employee. I would like to see which best suits or which is the best fit for an organization, since we have seen here practically it takes time when you choose the employees, and it goes faster or it executes faster when you choose the consolidated account.
So consolidating, so the speed depends on a lot of things. Sorry, I forgot your first question.
The first one on basic pay, there is a field for variable.
Yeah.
Basic and variable.
So base is usually used in all your component formulas, like base into point, like base divided by 2 is your HRA. So base is usually the standard monthly, like you take your CTC and divide it by 12, that is your gross base for every month. So if your CTC is 12 lakhs, okay, now I'm talking it INR, I'm not very comfortable with the currency here. So, but like, let's say it's 1 lakh per month, so that becomes your base. And variable is, let's say in sales, you don't actually pay out variable every time. So it's like your variable pay. It depends on certain factors, right? Base you will always get, but variable maybe depends on your performance. So you can set the variable amount there, and you can map it in your salary components that depend on variable, not base. So that is mostly used to refer in other salary components in the formula. So you could have a performance bonus or some other salary component which depends on variable pay, not your base. And you could set conditions in that. So maybe you want to give variable pay in the month of March every year, let's say. So you in that case, the condition for that salary component would be that if the month is equal to 3, which is March, then only this is applicable, and base it on the variable pay, not the base. So variable is used to control all those things, while base is for standard earnings, deductions, all those formula. Does that help? So you can, I think, documentation. Yes, that's what it says as well. So a variable pay base is always paid out regardless of whether the employees, uh, pass the meeting criteria or no. But variable is the portion of sales compensation, employee performance, employee hit their goals or no. So in that case, you can set up a variable pay, variable amount for each employee's salary structure assignment and base other components with that formula. And the second one was about performance affected by accounting entries checkbox. So the performance depends on a bunch of stuff. We saw the cost center mapping also. So there are companies who really need so there are two types of implementations in HR or payroll that I have seen. One who just want to have the processes in place, generate salary slips, send it out to their employees. One who wanted to work in harmony with accounting with as much detailed info as they can have per employee. So based on the implementation, you can switch the needs. For some, it's okay to disable such features for the sake of performance, because people might have like, here we just saw 2, but people might have like 20 cost centers that someone might be contributing to. But at the end of the day, you have to see how much value does the customer get out of this. If they value performance more than the functionality, then and if they are running things at scale, then maybe you can disable the feature. But we have like payroll performance improvements in the pipeline. So payroll, like performance for this will also improve in the upcoming versions. But it really depends on control and the level of detail you need. Do you need employee wise accounting to be booked or no? It depends, like implementation to implementation. Does that help? Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
How about you say about the loan, yeah, employee loan. What if the employee leaves in between, like he exits the company? What will happen to the balance if he has not completed paying?
So you can either settle it through full and final statement that we saw. So loan can also be added in the receivables. Like that's a pending receivable from the employee side. So full and final statement is one way that will pass a journal entry. Another is, I think the lending product itself has some way for early settlement. So that can also, you can do that explicitly if you're not linking it to payroll. Even if you're linking, you can still settle it. And once the employee has relieved anyway in the future payroll entries, the employee won't be fetched because the employee would be marked as left. So the accounting will be settled either through FNF or through lending's settlement feature.
You can't use the salary withheld feature to me.
For loans, I don't see salary withholding, because salary withholding is mostly for the entire salary slip. So it's not, you can't withhold one component or one part of the salary slip. It's the complete salary slip withheld. Anyone else? Yeah.
My question is on the income tax slab. The income tax slab is calculated based on yearly salary or CTC.
Yeah, it's based on annual taxable income.
Yeah, based on taxable income,
Yeah.
but it considers the yearly amount, okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I tried this and our problem is we are calculating taxes based on a monthly basis, okay? So there is a problem when calculating, and I can't get how to allocate down to the monthly basis, okay?
If it's monthly, we'll have to have some explicit feature on the tax slab calculation. Currently, it's annual taxable salary. Uh, but as a workaround, you can configure it, if you can configure it in the formula of the salary component, the tax slabs itself. So don't mark it as a taxable like variable based on taxable salary component. So don't depend on the tax slab but configure the formula within the component itself. Maybe that you can give it a try. But yeah, monthly could be an option in the core for tax slabs as well. So this is just for my knowledge. So Kenya does it need only one tax slab for one whole salary slip, or it has like multiple tax components? Does it have okay, so we'll need support for multiple tax components as well, and having the tax slabs configured from a monthly perspective. If you can convert the monthly amount to annual somehow, then the tax slabs might work existing.
What is the best approach to not use the title employee if the doctor is employee? For example, if you're working with a consultancy company and the people involved are consultants, so you don't want to label them as employees just because of the legal reasons.
I think we had some check. We had some way to override the name of the doctor, like only in view. That I know, but yeah, oh yeah. Change, you can set the new label for the doc type here. So in customize form, there is a field for change label via custom translations. So you can set whatever you want to call an employee over here. So in all your reports and views, I think it should show the overridden label.
But this will not work in your code if you are trying to write some overrides or some logic, business logic. It will not work like that. New name. You have to use the original brand name. Yeah, this is just for review. Okay. And then, so after, in case you use that, and there are many fields that are already labeling the employee all over the system, like in the
You can change the titles. I don't think that will, if you can, like, but that will be very cumbersome. But that's a way, like, it's possible. Editing titles is possible for fields. There is mobile. So we'll look at shift and attendance module now. We checked expense claim and leaves. Uh, so in shift management, like in leaves, you have leave type. There is shift type in shift management. Uh, it's a master. So you create a shift type and then you assign the shifts. So you could have like morning, evening, night shifts and shift assignment. And there is a feature for auto attendance within Frappe HR. So uh, there is something called as employee check-ins. Whenever your employees uh, enter the office, so it can be through multiple ways. Some companies prefer biometric devices where they have to punch in, punch out. Some companies have allow mobile check-ins. So the mobile app also has a check-in panel for Frappe HR. And in some cases, people usually don't follow the check-in, check-out, like the timings are flexible. So in that case, you can directly mark attendance in bulk, and there are tools for marking bulk attendance as well. So we look at all of that. So this is the employee check-in doc type where you have in-out logs, the time at which the employee checked in or checked out, and there is auto attendance that runs on it if you have configured. So all employee check-in logs are linked to the attendance record that was marked for it. So we'll quickly go through the shift type settings. Okay, so basic things like you configure the start time, end time for your shifts, and if you want to enable auto attendance based on the check-ins that come from your biometric or your mobile app, so that you don't have to manually mark attendance every day for all the employees. So there are certain settings that allow you to have more control on how the auto attendance works. Um, So for example, this is your setup. There are certain fields over here. So determining check-in and check-out, there are two options. One is strictly based on the log type and other is alternating entries as in and out. So this is based on how your employee check-in record will be treated in the system. Now why this is there are some biometric devices that don't give you the log type, whether it was in or out. What they have is, they have one biometric device on this side of the door and one outside. So it's always alternate, like when you punch out from the one, and then when you enter, you punch in from the other machine. So in that case, you don't have tagged data on whether the employee check-in was an in type or out type. So you can configure your determine check-in check-out to alternating entries as in and out. In that case, the system will consider, let's say there are 6. So first is in, second is out, third is in, fourth is out, and so on. Or if your biometric gives you the exact log type, you can keep it as strictly based on the log type that's coming from your data. Even if you are using mobile app takes care of like switching. If last one was in, the next is out. So in that case also you can keep it based on log type. Then in your attendance doc type, there is a working hours calculation that happens for the entire day. Like how much did you work actually based on your check-in, check-out timings. So how do you want to calculate the working hours? should it be based on first check-in and last checkout? So let's say it's a 9 to 5 thing. So I worked for like 8 hours, but some people want to deduct the break timings, the timings for which the employees were not in the campus or they had checked out. So in that case, you can keep it as every valid check-in and checkout. So every time they check out, between the next check-in and the checkout, it will deduct that timing from the working hours. So let's say out of 8 hours, 2 hours I was away, I had checked out. So your working hours would be calculated as 6. Uh, then there are some other check-ins. Let's say your shift is from 6 a.m. to uh, 3 p.m., something like that, but you want to allow employees to check in before the start time. Let's say 2 hours before the start time also, you consider the check-ins as valid, and let's say 2 hours after it also, because people might stay and work. So you can configure the minutes over here. So based on this setting, the whenever an employee check-in comes in the system, whatever shift you have assigned during that date, it will fetch the shift in the check-ins. So this is how it works. Like your start time is 10, end time is 18, like 6 p.m. and you have allowed 60 minutes before the start time and 60 minutes after start time. So your actual allowance, shift allowance, is from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. So you can see that whatever check-ins come in between 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., they will have this shift tagged in your check-in records, and all the check-ins that come before or after that won't have that shift linked to it. So based on the linked shift, the system calculates working hours and marks attendance for the employee. Then there are some other things as well, like um, let's say there are 8 working hours, but if they work like below 4 hours, you want to mark them as absent even though they worked. So you can set certain thresholds, like working hours threshold for absent, or marking them half day based on the working hours that get calculated on the fly. So you can set the limit over here. If it's 0, it will be disabled. So if you find check-ins, and irrespective of any working hours, even if they work for 1 hour, since there is no working hour eligibility, they'll be marked present. And there are certain other settings. So there is, if you check employee check-in, okay, attendance, there are certain check boxes here which get marked through auto attendance, whether it was a late entry or early exit. So people who have checked in before the shift start time will automatically be marked as late entry. And if they exit early, like before the shift ends, that will also be captured in the flag. So when you want to check the monthly attendance sheet report, you will see at a glance on what days what employees checked out early or checked in late. So for that, like controlling the flexibility on that, if you want to enable late entry or early exit marking, you can check these check boxes, and you can allow a grace period. So let's say your shift starts at 6 a.m. but till 6:30 you don't want to mark that employee late. You want to give that buffer of 30 minutes. So you can set the minutes here, and even if they check in at 6:31, which is like beyond 30 minutes, they'll be marked late entry. So you can control all these minute settings on how you want the auto attendance to take care of your check-in logs. Um, then there are some 2 settings, which is processing attendance after a certain date. So let's say you started using the system today. So your process attendance after, like, you want to mark, you want the system to mark attendance right from today. So you can set that date here. And there is something called as last sync of check-in. So as I said, employee check-in have different sources to be entered into your system. One of them is biometric. So there are cases where it's a multi-location scenario where there are multiple locations of the same company, and for the same shift type, maybe people are checking out from multiple locations. So the last sync of check-in takes care of the timestamp when you want to enable, like, the attendance for that shift can be marked. Why is this not explicit? Let's say, according to system time, my shift ended at 5 p.m. So I can technically I can start marking attendance at 5:01, right? Like, the system can start marking attendance. But in case of biometric, there are some issues, like maybe the sync didn't happen from the machine, it was late. In that case, it will, the check-in logs didn't come, so the system might accidentally mark the employees as absent because they didn't find the check-ins. But you don't want that to happen, right? So that's what last sync of check-in takes care of. So whenever your biometric attendance provider, integration provider is working with any system, they have some push timestamp for the biometric. So that should be set here. And based on this, you ensure that your auto attendance only gets marked when all check-ins for that shift have been synced. So you don't get problems like people getting marked absent accidentally, right? But this complexity is not always needed. So, like in case of mobile app, um, in case of mobile app, you don't have this concept of push timestamp, and you won't, like, the sync won't stop. So there is an upcoming setting coming, like automatically update the last sync of check-in in case of mobile app, or a single biometric device where you don't have to worry about all biometric devices consolidating their check-ins to push to the central system. So this will be available in the next release. This can be marked if you are using mobile app to check in, check out, or not multi-device, multi-location biometric setup. So this is how you configure the shift type. Once the shift type has been configured, your employee check-in setup needs to happen. So for that, you either tie up with your biometric integration provider. So they give you the tools to sync the logs from their machine to the system. This happens with all the HR payroll softwares out there. If not, then you can enable employee check-in in the mobile app. So in the mobile app, if you have enabled geolocation, it will ask for tracking your location, and you can check in, check out from the panel itself. So the employee has access to checking in or out. So if you want to enable geolocation tracking in your employee check-ins, in HR settings, there is a checkbox for attendance settings, allow employee check-in from mobile app and allow geolocation tracking. So if you have biometric, you want to disable mobile check-ins, right? Because they'll pollute your check-in data, like people can just check in anytime. So you can disable this to disable the flow from mobile app. If this is enabled, you can optionally enable geolocation tracking. So what happens is, when this is done and you check in from your mobile app, it will track the employee's location in the check-in. So I have some latitude, longitude captured at the time of checking in, and I can see the geolocation here. Now there is one step further to this. What companies want is, when the employee is within some radius of the location, like let's say 5 kilometers or 1 kilometer within the office premises, only then the check-in, check-out should be allowed. So that's called geofencing, where you set up some fencing radius. If the employee is outside that radius, they can't check in, check out. So that makes sure that employees are actually in the shift location where they were assigned. So to do that, there is a master called shift location. So you can set up some shift location, like you can fetch the geolocation of your company. It will set the latitude, longitude, and you can set the check-in radius in meters, like how many meters you like perimeter you want to allow the check-in, check-out to happen. So while checking in, if the employee is not in the given radius, then it will throw a validation error and the check-in won't go through. Uh, so this was about employee check-ins. Now, once you have configured the shift type and you have the inflow of check-ins coming in, you have to assign a shift to be able to figure out, like to enable the system to figure out how to mark the attendance. Like the working hour calculation and all will happen based on the assigned shift. So how do you assign a shift? There are different ways to do that. So there is a shift assignment doc type, wherein you select the employee, select the shift type, uh, and then you select the start and end dates. Let's say for one whole month, an employee is working in the day shift. So you select day shift here and set the start and end dates. If an employee's shift never changes, like it's always day, you can just remove the end date. So this is like considered like an active shift, which is applicable without an end date always, unless you create another shift assignment after this. So then this will become invalid after that date. So that's one way, but again, shift assignment for so many employees on a daily basis is difficult, right? So there are other ways. There is shift request where employees want to request for certain shift. So for example, this again you can set up workflows over here. So workflows can go with any doc type in framework. It can be leaves, claims, shift requests, or even your custom doc types that you create. You can set up workflows or anything. So when you create a shift request, an employee will create one that from this date to this date, I want to request for this shift. And once you approve that, a shift assignment will be created automatically. So shift request sets up a process for the employees to request for a certain shift that they want to work for. Again, this is still one-to-one level. So how do you uh, ease this, right? So there is a tool called shift assignment tool where you can either assign shifts or process shift requests. So you want to bulk approve shift requests or you want to bulk assign shifts, you can use this. So if you are assigning shift, let's say I want to assign a shift, some shift in bulk from some, like for the entire month of Feb, and I also want to put some location for geofencing, and then I can again use, so the tools have a similar structure. We saw leave control panel where you have filters to quickly fetch applicable employees based on different attributes like branch, department designation, or advanced filters. So I can set some department and it will fetch all employees of that department, and whoever I want to assign shift to, I can check all those employees and I can say assign shift. So this bulk assigned all my day shift to all these employees. So you get the link for assigned shifts over here. Uh, Again, processing shift requests is similar. So currently I don't have any shift request open, but the working is similar where it will fetch all the open shift requests and you process the requests in bulk to approve or reject, so that you don't have to go to individual documents to do this. There is even more, this is again like not very visual. When you think of shifts, you might want to see a calendar view of all the assigned shifts and holidays and leaves and everything in one view. So there is a tool called roster. So this is what the roster view looks like. I think we also have we have a link to roster in the workspace as well. You can also find the quick links with any linked, like from shift assignment you can go to tools and roster. Or so this is what the roster view looks like. There is a month view, and you can switch months over here. Again, these are like filters, so if you want to only see certain set of employees in the roster, you can set filters. Now I can see all these things at a glance, right? I can see leaves for this particular employee is on leave on these 2 days, and then this is the assigned shift. This employee doesn't have any shift assigned, so I can create a new shift assignment right from here. So let's say I'm assigning some evening shift for the month of Feb. Now you want to have some more control. Okay, so let's say not the entire month of Feb. Evening shift is only applicable on Mondays and Tuesdays. So you can toggle these days, like this will repeat on these days, and set the frequency. So every week, every 2 weeks, like you want to have Monday, Tuesday shift this week, and then the next to next week. So all that configuration is available. You can do this and then hit submit. And now I can see Monday, Tuesday, the shift is applicable. Again, next Monday, Tuesday, this shift is applicable. So this is a more visual way of configuring your shift assignments at scale. Maybe for a small company, this won't be that useful, but let's say you're running a restaurant where you have to cover, or a hospital where you have to cover all timings like night, day, so on. So this is a more visual way of uh, assigning and planning for all the days. And then there are other things, like things that you would expect, like you want to update an existing assignment or delete uh, the entire consecutive shift assignment, so on and so forth. So from here you can go and you have navigation to the linked doc types, etc. And you can also create explicit shift assignment from here. So this is what roster lets you do. And there is also another feature where, let's say now this Sunday shift I want to shift to, instead of this employee, I want to shift it here. So I can just drag drop to like change the shift from one employee to another. And yeah, so this was about the roster tool. So once auto attendance is marked, yeah, so this was automatically marked by the system. So I get the shift, I get the in time and out time of the employee. I can see that this is linked to 2 check-ins. So there was just one check-in and check-out, no out or in logs in between. And the working hours have been calculated automatically to 11 based on your shift type settings, like if you have configured to exclude breaks and all. So once your attendance gets marked, there is a report for shift attendance. I think I don't have much data here, but it will show you all the employees with what shift was assigned to them, what was the attendance date and shift start and end time. Their in time will be marked in red if it was a late entry. Similarly for out time, total working hours and like late entry by how much duration. So they were like 3 hours late. And the attendance that was marked for that record. So this shift attendance report will give you a bird's eye view on how the auto attendance worked. Now let's say sometimes you so the auto attendance marked some employee absent because it didn't find any check-ins or check-out. But the employee actually forgot to check in, check out that day, maybe through mobile app. So how do you rectify your attendance, right? So let's say this. So this employee has been marked absent for 20th of Jan, but I want to rectify my attendance. So I can go to attendance request. I'll just add 2-3 days more to show the. Maybe you are working from home, so you didn't check in, check out. You can add some explanation to this. So, what it is saying is, okay, I'll also add a holiday list to this because I want to show some. Okay, so when you create an attendance request, it will show a summary of what attendance will be overwritten. So the 20th attendance was already marked. So it will override this attendance on submission and it will skip attendance for 25th, 26th even though you have set the date here because it was a holiday. So all this the system takes care of and warns you before you submit an attendance request. Now again on attendance request you can set up approvals through workflow and once you do this, okay. So once you do this, the attendance record now got changed from absent to work from home. So you see this in the timeline and so if the auto attendance has done something and you want to see why, like why was the employee marked absent, you can always check the timeline of the attendance record. So the system leaves a comment here. So it says employee was marked absent due to missing employee check-ins. So that helps you figure out why someone was marked absent and then they can go and request for attendance regularization. On submission, as you can see, the status changed from absent to work from home because of the regularization. Um, then there is attendance calendar as well. Data. Yeah, I think it's some permission. So this only fetches records for the current employee because you're not allowed to see attendance records of others and I've logged in as admin, so I am not mapped as an employee. So it won't show up here, but there is an attendance calendar that not here. But it's similar to leave application where you see all your attendance records in the calendar view. Now this was about auto attendance. What about companies where managers manage the attendance, right? So you need tools for bulk attendance where shift is not in the scenario at all. So there are some reports for this, tools for this. So there is this employee attendance tool where for a particular day, let's say for today, you want to filter again employees based on some filter. So you see all the employees here. You can select, unselect whichever you want. And then you set the attendance details that you want to mark all these employees as present on this date. You can even link a shift and mark them late entry, early exit from here. So this shows me the summary that all these employees were marked as absent on this day and these two are still remaining. So I can mark them as half day maybe. So I have now marked attendance for all the employees of a particular department and I can see the status here. These two were marked as half day, others were present. So this is a simple tool which helps you mark daily attendance without setting auto attendance. And then there are other things. So there is upload attendance in case for some reason your attendance sits in Excel sheets or CSVs. You can set the from and to date for which you are uploading the sheet for attendance and the system will then create attendance records for this. Yeah, and then this is the monthly attendance shift report. So I can see the legend over here and against each employee for each day within that month, I see leaves, present days, half day, weekly offs, so on and so forth. So I can also see a summarized view of this where against each employee how many present days were there, how many leaves, how many absent, how many holidays, unmarked days. So this will help you understand how many days you haven't marked attendance for. So you have 25 unmarked days and it will also give you a breakup of every leave type, like against every leave type if you have applied for leave in that particular month. So I had applied 2 leaves in this month for annual. Uh, Total late entry, early exits, some people need to check that for things like, I don't know, termination, suspension, if you are like beyond 3 late remarks. So yeah, so the monthly attendance sheet helps you cover all these things. Yeah, this was about shift and attendance. If you have any doubts in this, you can ask. Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to know, like, assume I have a shifting, my shift size which is bigger.
Uh, can you get a mic? Suraj. 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 Mic.
my shift type, well configured, following all the standards. And then if I get to assign an employee to that shift, and basically, let us assume this night shift. Night shift used to start maybe from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., right? Yeah. By the day that, when this person comes on that day and punch, the employee checking records become taken for the in and during the morning for the out, right? But the attendance become marked always as absent for the first day that the shift assignment for that person has started. So I wanted to know, like, what might be the issue that causes this to mark absent to the employee for the first day of the shift assignment, basically for those who for those who work during the night hours. Okay. And secondly, I wanted to know, like, what circumstances or case that cause there is a checkbox in the employee checking of skip out attendance, right? Yeah. So I wanted to know, like, what happens, like, the employee checking actually, if it is taken for a specific shift, right? For that employee. And the shift, it is, in the shift itself, the checkbox for enabling opportunities is enabled, right? But then the employee checking, it happens sometimes, it's like, it takes the skip of attendance, and so when the attendance becomes processed, then there is no end status that is being marked as attendance, whether it is present or absent. So what is the thing that may cause this skip of attendance check to be checked in the employee checking?
So first question was about midnight shifts, I think, where shift starts from first day but ends, let's say, 10 p.m. to 2, 3 a.m. So you are saying that employee gets, so even if it's a midnight shift and you assign for today, the attendance is for today because so attendance date depends on the start date of the shift. So for today, he'll be marked present or absent based on half day, based on whatever shift settings and working hours. So midnight shifts do work, but if you are assigning one single assignment for today itself, that shift is not applicable tomorrow. So even though if it's like going over a day, the attendance is supposed to be for today, not tomorrow. If you want it for tomorrow, then the end date should be till tomorrow as well. So then it will find the correct shift. So midnight shifts, the start date corresponds to the attendance date. Uh, did you get that? So 5th Feb, right? So 5th Feb, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. 2 a.m. is actually 6th Feb. But when attendance marking will happen, it will mark attendance for 5th Feb, not 6th. Unless you explicitly assign a shift for 6th. If you assign the same midnight shift for 6th, it will again function as assumed, like it will mark record for 6th. So if your configuration is still correct, you can open an issue because we have a lot of users using midnight shifts and the setup works for them. Maybe something is not uh, considered in your setup or you have missed something in the apart from this, I don't think there should be a problem. The date itself, like the assignment date. Uh, Second was regarding skip auto attendance. So I'll just quickly show the. So you're talking about this checkbox getting checked automatically through auto attendance sometimes. So just like when in attendance employees are marked absent, the system leaves a reason below. It also leaves a reason where it skips the auto attendance in the timeline. But mostly it's when the system finds an already existing attendance record. So now it can't override that, right? Like that was maybe manually created through attendance request or some previous manual intervention. So since it finds that the auto attendance is trying to mark a duplicate one. So it will enable this and say that I skipped auto attendance for this record, and it will show a message in the timeline that it was due to duplicate attendance record. Sometimes it's also when uh, you have overlapping shifts. So let's say accidentally you first assigned a shift from 10 to 2 and another shift from 1 to 4. So it's overlapping, right? So the attendance also checks if you are not marking duplicate attendance for overlapping shifts. If they are like outside the boundaries, then 2 attendance records will be created. Otherwise, it won't. But skip auto attendance always leaves a message in the timeline. I don't know if I have. Okay. So yeah, so this you can see reason for skipping auto attendance. So in this case, I had misconfigured the employee master. So the attendance was being marked for 30th of April, but employee's joining date was 21st of August, which is incorrect. Like the joining date was further ahead. So this was just a validation due to which the attendance failed for that date. So you can find the reason in the timeline for your case when the skip auto attendance happens. That will help you. So if you have auto attendance set up, uh, it's suggested that you don't go through manual attendance marking first, so that it doesn't conflict with the auto attendance, because when you do manual attendance marking, it doesn't do all the working hour calculation and all that, because that sits in the shift type. So if you have auto attendance, then don't do manual marking, so then skip auto attendance won't find the conflict while marking attendance. Anything else? Okay. You have to break at 1 for lunch. So I'll just see if I can cover something shorter. I think most topics are huge. I can quickly cover performance management. Um so in performance, the things that you have is you might have KRAs for each department that you want to track. So this is a KRA master, key result area. This you can add your own KRAs in here. Like we have certain KRAs for the engineering department. Once you do that, there is an appraisal template. So you can create an appraisal template per department. Like for engineering, these are all my KRAs: development, design, quality, documentation, automation, and you can set a weightage against each. So how you want to evaluate the employee on like development and design take the most weightage. So it's 30% of your score will be based on development goals, 30 based on design, and so on. And then there is rating criteria. So you might not always rate based on your KRAs, but based on other things like excellence, problem solving ability, accountability, all of those things. So you can set rating criteria in the templates, and again a weightage for this. So rating will come in picture when your reporting managers or everyone is trying to rate the employee for a 360-degree feedback. So once you have set up your KRA and department-wise appraisal templates, we have appraisal cycle. So you can create one for 24-25. So there is a KRA evaluation method. So there are two ways to do this. One is through whatever KRAs and weightage you have set, you can add goals in your system. So system will auto-calculate your KRA score based on the goals you completed. We'll come to that in some time. And the other one is manual rating, where you want to give the employer or the reporting manager to manually rate the employees. So we can go with automated goal progress KRA evaluation. And now you want to have more control on how the final score gets evaluated. So basically in appraisal in Frappe HR, there are three things. One is the goal score that comes from all the goals that the employee keeps fulfilling or the tasks marked against the KRAs. Second is the feedback score, average feedback score that comes from peers, reporting manager. And the third is self-appraisal score. So people might not want to have self-appraisal maybe in the final score formula evaluation. So this allows you to set up a custom formula like you do in salary components. So So you get auto completion for, so let's say goal score is this much weightage and average feedback score. And I don't want to use the self-appraisal score that's just for documentation, but you can also make this more configurable. Like if you do this, if designation is engine, else you set some different formula. So you can have control on this, like based on designation or any employee attribute. Or if you want to make it easier, you can filter out who is applicable for this cycle. So again, filters for a department, and you can fetch all the, okay. So one more thing is, once you set appraisal, create appraisal templates, you can set it up at the designation level. So you can link the appraisal template at a particular, like even if the people are in the same department, let's say research and development, the appraisal method is different for mid-level, senior level employees. So based on designation, you can link the appraisal template and it will be automatically fetched here. If you don't want to set it in the master, you can do this against each employee as well. Like maybe CEO is an exception, so a separate appraisal template for them, and then you select that. So now I have this list of who this appraisal cycle is applicable for. So in this case, it's only for engineers, so I can remove this complex condition. So I can create multiple appraisal cycles for each department and have different formula per department, have more control. By default, the final score is evaluated as average of goal score, average feedback score, and the self score. But the formula lets you configure more of this. So now you can go ahead and create appraisals from the cycle. So now you see 7 appraisals got created. And the appraisal template had some KRAs, right? Based on my department, like development design, how much is the weightage. So I can see a graph. Currently everything is 0 because I don't have any goals mapped to my KRAs. Then there is a feedback tab. Currently no feedback for this employee. Self-appraisal again. So these are all the appraisals created. Now I can start the appraisal cycle where people can go ahead and start creating their goals, start capturing feedback. So there is a goal doc type. I'll just switch to list. So this is what the goal doc type looks like. So what does a goal have? It has all your, let's say you're planning for the whole year. What are your goals based on KRAs? So one of my KRA was documentation improvement. So what did I do for that is what the goal means. So I created a new documentation site or updated something. So people can create new goals from the tree view as well. So you can see, let's filter it out for one employee. You can see all their goals here. So you can have parent goal, child goal. So in the redesign project, let's say I had these two tasks or goals and how many of them have been completed or in progress. So you see based on your KRAs how the employees are actually doing things. And there is a progress completion for this, so they can mark the progress completion, and based on the completion progress the KRA score gets evaluated automatically. So let's say for this appraisal cycle, this is an old one, so yeah, for example, I created a goal against documentation and I've completed 50% of the goal. So based on my weightage, my goal score is 5, and then it automatically calculates your goal score based on how you update your goals against KRAs. So you have received like 0.25 out of 5 in goal score. This employee has received. Then there are other things like feedback. So goals is completely in the hands of employee, how they want to plan their quarter, year, based on the KRAs assigned to them. They can have certain goals which are not tied to KRA as well, which they just have it as to-dos. Then there is the feedback tab. So once your goals and everything is in progress, people can come and give you feedback. Like your peers, they'll see a new feedback button, and they can add feedback based on your performance. So based on your appraisal frequency, let's say some companies might have quarterly appraisals. So you could create quarterly appraisal cycles and capture feedback for the entire quarter at the end. So you see a timeline. Whenever you open an appraisal, you see a timeline of what reviews they have gotten and what is the average rating that the employee received. And last, there is self-appraisal, which the employee can fill in for themselves. So based on all these scores, you get a final score here. This can be either based on formula or the average, whatever you have set in the appraisal cycle. And you can go ahead and see a particular employee's goals, actual goals from the appraisal. So based on this, there is an appraisal overview report. So I can select a particular appraisal cycle and see all the list of employees there, how many feedback they got. So this particular employee got it from 2 employees. What's the average feedback score, goal score, self score, and final score? So this is just like a summary of your entire appraisal cycle. And whatever gets submitted in the timeline it's actually coming from here. Let me check if I can. So I see a new feedback button. I've logged in as an employee now. If you have permission to view that employee's records, you will see this button. So I can add some feedback from here and rate. Now this comes from our template that we set up in the beginning where we mentioned our rating criteria, right? And we had the weightage there. So I can rate them based on these criteria. And I see it in the timeline. The rating gets captured. So multiple employees can come and like you can have a 360-degree feedback cycle with your peers as well as reporting manager. So that timeline is seen over here, but I can go to the individual feedback to read more about, like, if you want to customize this, you can add more custom fields to this and so on. Yeah, I think. There are some other things like, okay, I have permission issues there. So if you want to see what all employees haven't created any goals for the quarter, you can check this report and you will see the reporting manager over here. So this is just like an overview of if someone is falling behind and so on. Yeah, that's about performance. You can create a lot of notifications on top of this, like based on the appraisal cycle end date, you can set up notification to remind employees to submit feedback for their peers, or filling up self-appraisal reminders for that. So all that can happen through the framework's notification doc type. Yeah, any doubt in this module? Okay. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, so that formula can have the standard goal score, feedback score, and self appraisal score. And any like salary component, you can use any attribute from the employee doc type. You can customize it based on designation, department. Like for this particular designation, this is the formula, else this is the formula. So the formula gives you more freedom on how you want to evaluate different set of people, or you want to omit something, like you don't want to have goal score as a metric in final score, just do reviews based on feedback. So you can just set it as average feedback score and it will only consider that while calculating final score, because goals can also be very random and maybe people can game the system with like creating more goals or smaller goals and completing it often. So if you want to keep that aside and only have it purely based on feedback, you can omit that in the formula that you set. So there are docs available on how to set up the formula. Uh, Anything else, or we'll have to break for lunch, I think. Cool.